The Davis family, I think, is rich because of. Remember, he didn't come from money. Like, wasn't I don't remember what the fuck Al Davis did, but he wasn't.
He ended up owning a team. Yeah,
like he's the one family. Because remember, they always talk about them being broke, where they can barely make payroll.
He wasn't in business before. He was a coach.
Yeah, wasn't he in football? Like he was.
Yeah.
Their money is football, and that's why they've had. And now they're probably fine now because they're in fucking Vegas.
Oh no, Mark Davis. That the fact that he could walk around with that goofy haircut. It's like, hey, Buster Brown, man, what the fuck?
Exactly.
Do you think he's like Bob Keeshan, Captain Kangaroo? Those are the only two people ever that wore that haircut. We're proud of it, right? I mean, Mark Davis, he is living the dream, this guy. He's got babes. He owns the Las Vegas Raiders. But he seems like, honestly, I saw a feature on him on 60 Minutes. And, maybe everybody looks and goes, holy shit, how did that fat fuck get so rich? And the inheritance seemed like somebody that would be interesting to talk to because on the surface, observing this guy, he seems like somebody that understands how fucking lucky he was
to
be in that position.
The time! Wake up with Defo, joined by Lubie. Welcome to the Defo Show.
All right, very pleasant. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Friday Getaway Day edition of the Defo Show. That's Mike Lubie Lubitz there. I'm not sure which way you would be on the screen. I guess you would be on the left of the screen. Am I looking at this backwards? Is it juxtaposition here? I'm not sure.
No,
anyway, the other guy. I mean,
that guy over there.
That's Lubie.
Hello.
Great entertainment last night. I mean, I don't know that you could say anything, but that the game between Notre Dame and Penn State, win or lose, I sort of jumped on Penn State with a very tepid endorsement, thinking, okay, getting a point. Well, I was only getting a point from the Jewish Journal line by Francesco. And lose my number, please. Getting a point there, I don't know. Did it go off 1.5? At one time, the line had hit 2.5, which, I mean, shows you how accurate that these line makers are. And, of course, it was decided on a last-second field goal, 42-yard field goal. Kid Jeter nailed it. Ball looked like it might be going to the right there, Louis, didn't it? And then it had this nice draw back into the middle of the goalposts. And so Notre Dame walks off the field, essentially. They had two more plays, Penn State, but you didn't figure that they were going to be able to overcome that 3-point margin in 8 seconds. And Notre Dame moves on to the championship game under Marcus Freeman. I mean, how down in the gutter were they? They were face down in the gutter after that Northern Illinois loss. So a nice rally all through the season by Notre Dame. The knock on them was, who'd they beat? That was somewhat a parallel to the thought process about Penn State, that even though they had two losses, the losses were to Ohio State and Oregon, but who did they beat in the other games? Did they beat anybody of any great significance? I don't know, not necessarily, but nonetheless, they were in command of the game, or so it seemed, being up a touchdown late and then stopping Notre Dame with about 3 minutes to go in a ball game. And they had the ball and a chance to just grind down the clock to the point where it would have been prohibitive for Notre Dame to overcome that. Notre Dame that gets a touchdown. What was it? There might have been a little more time left. Notre Dame gets a touchdown on that blown, what was it, a blown coverage, Louie? What would you say? The guy juked out one guy after he caught the pass, goes the distance into the end zone. Now it's a tie ball game. Penn State gets the stop that they needed and has the ball. It looks like they're in a position to go ahead, grind down the clock, win the game. And ball game tied at 24 at that point. And Allen, I mean, throws one of the dumbest passes that you could possibly loft up there in that spot. He's going to his left. He throws it back across towards the middle of the field. Ball gets picked off relatively close to field goal range where Notre Dame took possession. Notre Dame grinds down the clock, gets the field goal, and gets the win. So, I don't know, pretty entertaining game. I don't feel badly about being on Penn State in that one. I don't know that you could sit there and go, yeah, I told you.
No, it was a tight game. Look, the professor joining us, I didn't realize where he stood when I said Notre Dame yesterday because I thought it was a tight game, and I just felt as much as Riley Leonard isn't special, he seemed to make, at least in this run, since they've been on this win streak, he makes plays down the stretch, and
plays. He seems to come out on the right, and got some great catches by his receivers.
Yeah, he got help, and he didn't. And look, he made a stupid ass interception that I'm sure he wanted back, but then they went down and got a touchdown and tied it up after that. Look, Allard had played well, so and it was nothing against him. I didn't know if he would be able to do it. And James Franklin, we know, is weird in these moments. Marcus Freeman's too young to actually have that moniker.
Yeah,
that he's the guy who can't win the big game. But Franklin is that guy that has struggled to win the big game.
I'm not sure I put the blame on.
And I don't think he lost the game, but that was just me going into this game, looking at the game. That's why I was leaning Notre Dame. And then the professor, when I was with him yesterday, sold me on Penn State. And then early on, you saw, I was like, shit, I guess he knew a thing or two because Penn State jumped out to that 10-0 lead. And then it tightened up, and it was very low scoring to the fourth quarter. And it was like a slugfest.
Yeah, I mean, the underplayers were dancing in the streets. I was watching the first half with Jersey Kyle, and I told him I picked Penn State on a couple of shows, and that the under was looking very promising to me because a lot of people like the over in a ball game, and you're looking at 10-0 at halftime, and then it became 10-3 just before the half, and you thought to yourself, I'm looking pretty good here. I mean, that was like an Axel Fried moment where you leave Las Vegas with Lauren Hutton, and you're thinking you won the 2 basketball games, and then the bookie knocks on your door as you return back to New York City. And Fried's waiting for a payoff, and as James Caan was playing Axel Fried in the movie. And the bookie looks at him, and it's predated having instant information on anything. And he says, hey, listen, Axel, they don't pay off at halftime. And they didn't pay off at halftime last night. How about this one, though? I get a text from my son with a picture, and he's standing with a bunch of other people, and it appears that he is in the, what would it be? I mean, the kind of catacombs of Hard Rock Stadium, and he got into the game by being one of the guys that was holding the American flag before the game started.
Oh shit,
Jesse DeForest, unbelievable. I don't know how he pulled that off. He didn't really explain it to me, but
wait, your son himself,
my son Jesse was holding one of the flag holders.
What?
You know, where they have the giant flag out on the field during the national anthem? That's how he got into the game. And he had seats like in the lower bowl around the goal line in the corner of the end zone.
What the hell?
How can you do that? It's better than me at poaching tickets for stuff. Are you kidding me?
Impressive. That's impressive.
No mention was made prior to that. I mean, the first thing I knew of it was he sent me a picture that he was about to go out on the field there, and there was the flag in the background. And then I started looking for him, but it was not easy to spot. And sure enough, and then he sends me a video from the seats that he had, and he's in a great position there. Holy shit.
Good for him.
Seats were like 300 in the upper deck there, Lubie. That's always a magic question for sports fans. Would you pay $300 to go see a ball game? Well, would you pay $300 to go see a ball game? Are we just too spoiled because we've had so many freebies?
I was going to say, in another
I can't remember the last time I paid for tickets to a game.
Another time in my life, no. We've not been removed enough where I know I just can't get tickets whenever I want anymore. Yeah. So, look, the Dolphins was always the one. If they went far enough and it was down here, or even if I had to travel, would I be like that kind of a fan? Because my whole life I've been waiting to see them in that game. When I was younger, I said yes.
Thousands to go to a Super Bowl.
When I was younger, I said yes, and then I got into the business, so I was like, yeah, I won't have to if I really want to. I can find I get a credential bad enough. Now I don't know. I'm not gonna lie. Like it seems so far away for that organization to be in that game that I may out of shock do it. I don't know. I would do everything I could to get a credential. Like, so yeah, I can see 300's not. I mean, the way prices are nowadays, 300's not so bad.
300 isn't outrageous. I guess if you're a huge Notre Dame devotee,
you're a Notre Dame fan. They haven't won a title in 30 years, 25, 30 years.
That's upper deck though. That was nosebleed. About 3 sticks. I think it was 280 or something like that. I don't know what the face value would have been. Would you imagine that the face value had to be well over 100 for upper deck tickets to the Orange Bowl game? Because I was thinking Tony Segreto is going to join us today, and he had a bunch of tickets that I guess at one time he thought about unloading, but just to get his money back for what he paid for them. And the temptation, of course, was to buy them all off Tony, but then we didn't want to embarrass Tony by having somebody sitting in the seat.
No, it wasn't even that.
Some Orange Bowl committee official comes by and says, hey, where's Segreto?
Well, the problem is, I think you can resell them. It's because he was going to resell them to us. You can't you can't jack up the price. And look, if we knew someone in person, we could do it because no one would know. But
Yeah.
the way we would have to do it is online, and there are numbers and codes where they like, especially for people like Tony and who's a board member, they track those tickets. So if they saw that it was sold down the line for $600 a ticket, like it would go back to Tony and he would look bad. So yes, that's
we couldn't
why
do that.
we sit
We
out
love
of
him too much, right? Man of great dignity and distinction comes on our show. I mean, it's an honor to have Tony Segreto doing anything with you. And if we buried him by scalping his tickets, that would have been somewhat of an embarrassment. No, although at least we could have used the money. That's for sure.
Oh, for
Tickets that are scalped at a ball game, I mean, it goes straight to the track with the money. Big
it's just free money.
I mean, look, it makes sense though. I used to have the opportunity to buy 2 Super Bowl tickets every year from my affiliation with the Miami Dolphins. And there was a guy, I believe his first name was David. I want to say David Evans. Real good guy. And he used to let me buy 2 tickets. So I was on the list of people that were eligible to buy them. But there was no hesitation on my part. Super Bowl tickets weren't that outrageous back then. It was like $200 a copy on face value. And you were lucky if you got 400 or 500 for them. Now, Super Bowl game, I mean, no matter what it's going to be in New Orleans, what would you think? 2,500 would be the minimum somebody would be able to get for a ticket.
Well, especially if you can get like a Lions there. The Lions have never played.
Lions, Chiefs, Lions, Ravens.
You can get like teams that like haven't won, like a Lions and like a Chargers, who I mean, their fans suck, but like if you can get like something like a Bills who haven't won ever, they have that long storied history of getting so this close and then falling apart. They've been knocking on the door for the last few years. If you can get Bills, Lions, like I know the ratings, I don't know what the ratings will be, but it's a Super Bowl, so they'll get great ratings regardless. Like those are 2 franchises with die-hard fan bases that have been fucking salivating for just being in the game. Remember, the Bills, it's now been 30 years since they've been in the game, and they have such a bad taste in their mouth. Like
lost 4 straight.
The Lions have never even sniffed this kind of success.
No,
so I see those tickets going for thousands of dollars, and people will travel for that. Like, and it's New Orleans. It's a really cool city that they're both entrenched in cold. Like New Orleans may be cold because right now even we're cold, but it ain't Buffalo and Detroit.
No.
Like, oof, that would be vacation. Like I could see those tickets going for a crap load. Like those tickets would fucking.
It definitely escalated over the years. From the time that I was in a position to go ahead and scalp some tickets. But I would think that those Orange Bowl tickets would have drawn a pretty fair price last night. I was actually surprised it was only a few $100 to get into the upper deck there for that game. But nonetheless, very entertaining ball game. Couldn't have asked for much more out of it. Last second field goal wins it, back and forth. It looked like
it was a great game.
They come back, roaring back in this one, and they were going to be on their way to the victory relatively easily. Penn State comes back, takes a 7-point lead. A lot of belly aching about that call, the pass interference call that accorded Penn State the chance to go in for the go-ahead touchdown after it was 17-all.
Just take that because
on the interception.
Well, it's the new thing that they do. The quarterback throws such a bad ball that it looks like pass interference. This one was nowhere near. The receiver jumped up without the contact, freely jumped up. The ball was at like his feet, and the defender made a good play on the ball that was nowhere near. Like It wasn't a pass interference, and you didn't have to call it. Play. But it wasn't like one of these. That's what I'll say is there was a couple that were a little weird. They weren't like the worst call ever. It wasn't like horrible. Like you could have seen it.
There was a lot of stuff. When you see replays sometimes, I'm watching the official that's in the backfield for the offensive team, and who was number 11? He's like a real good player on.
Abdul Carter. He's a guy that I would bend over backwards for the Dolphins to be able to draft. He's going to go like top 4.
I mean, he's rushing the passer right in front, in full view of the, what would it be, the back judge? I don't know what they call the guy.
Yeah, the guy by the quarterback.
You're looking right at it. The lineman grabs his face mask, is holding him as he's turning the corner, and no flag. And I'm thinking, there you go. There's Notre Dame favoritism. Who's calling this game? Eric Parsegian, for God's sake. How do you miss that? So I thought at that point that we were getting tremendous Notre Dame bias, but surprisingly, the reaction to the game from most people's standpoint with regard to officiating was that Penn State, almost almost robbed this game from Notre Dame with that horrible call.
It leaned Penn State a little, but look, I think they went almost the whole first half. I think the first penalty was in like the last 30 seconds or last minute of the first half. So it was a clean game. And the refs, even that one call, Notre Dame was able to have attempts after that and get their scores after that. And like it evened out enough where I didn't leave that game bitching about the refs. At the moment, people were complaining about that play, but after it sort of went away because Notre Dame was able to go down the field, was able to score. And again, Aller had the doofus play of the day. I mean, he went to his left, was getting drilled. I'm like, wow, because they didn't really get to him all game. He wasn't really pressured. And I was like, all right, wow, that's going to be incomplete. This is going to be tough. Hopefully we'll get some some overtime, because I was really looking for overtime because that game was like a war at the end. And then he just threw it up. It's like, oh, that's not in the middle of the field. That's not what you do.
Wow. That seldom works. All right, a couple of other things. The Heat got a victory last night. They were favored by 5.5 over the hapless and inept Utah Jazz, one of the worst teams. They might be the worst team in the NBA.
I mean, they lost by 30 to the Jazz at home, so it was nice to see them beat the Jazz.
Yes, so and they failed to cover the spread, though. They win by 5 last night. Tyler Hero was the high scorer in the game. The Jimmy Butler thing, we're not hearing a whole lot of steam about that. Don't know where that's going to go. Among the malcontents, Les Miserables, Tyreek Hill now through Drew Rosenhaus Rosenhaus is saying that Tyreek Hill is committed to the Miami Dolphins, doesn't want out of here, and that he played the whole season with a broken wrist.
Okay, so is he attributing that to the cops? Like, is that the risk that the cops
have to think that was where it occurred? No.
So is that why they didn't? Look, he didn't look right. If that's true, then it's actually impressive the year he had, because he sort of needs your wrist to catch a football, and do his zips it in there.
Where somewhat inhibiting, would it not?
You would think. So I give him credit. Like, if he was able to play through injury and then he didn't whine about it, but you still don't leave at the end of, like, you don't pull the Randy Moss. Like, you finish the game. Like, whatever happens versus the Jets, you weren't making the playoffs. You finish with your team. Like, there's that video out there where you see Waddle like going, Reek, you're done? They're like in the huddle. It's like, you can't leave your teammates like that. Like, he's
that's a disgrace. That's something that you never. I mean, this is why, regardless of how little is being offered for Jimmy Butler, don't you believe at this point? Maybe it could be resolved. I don't know. Does he have a sit down with Pat Riley, and all of a sudden they come to some kind of accord, and you get a dedicated and motivated Jimmy Butler trying to show that he's worth every penny of the $50 million that he's getting paid this year, Mike Lubie-Lubitz. So, see, that would bug me. I mean, that's De Niro and the Fan type of stuff, where a guy isn't motivated enough. He's getting $50 million, and that would overcome any justification of a player sulking because he didn't feel like he was in the flow of the game like he should be, or whatever. I don't know. Well, what is his beef? Seems like all of the Heat players capitulate to Jimmy Butler.
He just wants to get paid.
Is Ulster telling him not to give Butler the ball? I mean, what is the deal?
No, have you seen where the only place he wants to go now? Like, you understand that isn't better. Like, the Suns getting rid of a Beal and having Booker, Durant, and Butler is a fun idea. But Booker, I know who you love, is not the same dude. His numbers are falling off a lot. Durant still putting up numbers, but he's older. And Butler's not the defensive. Like, none of those guys are defensive guys. Like, in the West, with what we're seeing out West, okay, what are they, the 9 or 10 now? So they'll be the 7. Like, you would trade for Butler, give him an extension, and be the same team that you are. Like, the Heat with a motivated Butler would be like the 3 seed in the East right now. Like, the East is not good. Like, they would be with the Cavs and the Celtics, they would be right below them because those teams are really good. But everyone else, they would be literally, again, they're only 4 games behind the Knicks. Like, if they had a motivated Butler, they'd be right there. The Heat with a motivated Butler is better than the Suns. You want to know why he wants to go to Phoenix? They're the only organization that has openly said they'll give him an extension. They'll give him a 2-year, $120 million extension on top of the year he already has.
Who's running the Suns, man? They have that wacko owner, don't they?
Ishbia, yes. The guy that will just, he's like the Ross of the NBA. Like, he'll just pay anyone, whatever they want. It's not about winning because he makes it seem like it's winning, but he's putting really weird combinations together. They're not going to win in the West, where you have teams that not only have talent, but they play defense and they're young. Like, It's Butler
Last
just
place in their division.
Butler just wants
but
money.
very narrow. I mean, the division is very compact there. They're in last place, but only 3.5 back.
Butler just wants the money.
The
They're the
Lakers, surprisingly, are atop the division, even though there's who's calling for the head of J.J. Redick already? Was that Charles Barkley?
Barkley. Well, I think Redick said something, and then Barkley went after. I think Barkley said something, just talking about the Lakers, and then I guess Redick, because Redick doesn't give a shit. Redick said something, and then Barkley. This is what I saw. Barkley like last week, like they were trying to do highlights of another game, and Barkley kept bringing up Redick. He's like, "Fuck JJ." He's like, "Fuck that guy. He doesn't know shit." He's in for a rude awakening in that city with that team. It's like, Jesus, Charles. They all were like, anyways, and Ernie kept like trying to do the highlight, and Barkley just kept ranting about.
Take a look at this play, the Wizards. I tell you what.
That's exactly what.
Barkley's fuming about J.J. Redick because he said something. Well, what about
oh my God,
Kendrick Perkins?
He's the worst.
I mean, how did he become the lead analyst? What happened to ESPN that they just keep jamming these guys down our throat? What made him all of a sudden a qualified, an expert beyond the scope of having anybody else ever analyze any games?
That's a great question,
isn't it? I mean, what is the appeal there? I mean, is he? You're watching and going, what is this guy fucking saying? Does he even watch games? So we don't know. All right, we're gonna have the professor and Tony coming on here, but this could cause a little bit of a traffic jam on the show, Lubie.
We can do a few minutes with Tony. It is what it is.
We'll at least get a chance to say hello to Tony Segreto. So let's take a short time out. We'll come back. We'll try and have Tony with us, and then the professor going to join us with a big board. So a lot to look forward to. You have a giant weekend. Phil Mushnick is all over this. I don't know how you feel about this. When the NFL has the right to do whatever they want with their product in terms of marketing it, selling it, but to have the Steelers-Ravens game on a streaming channel where most of the public, I would assume it's the majority of the public, will not be able to see it. They did this last year with the Kansas City Dolphins game, the Frostbite Bowl, where 12 people had to have amputations as a result of getting frostbite during the course of the game. And the majority of people, didn't have access to it. 15 million less people watched that game, a very attractive game with the eventual Super Bowl winner, than like a much less attractive matchup the next day that was on over-the-air TV. All right, we're going to come back with more in a moment, try and figure out how exactly to navigate our way through a couple of guests here in the last half hour. Back with more in a moment. Now that.
Hey, folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously, friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs unmatched. Steaks hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-45.
What we gonna do right here is go back, way back into time.
We are now kicking it old school with the one and only Tony Segreto. Brought to you by Texas Roadhouse.
All right, there he is. Where he is the question. It looks like you're back in town, Tony.
It's down here.
Back
Nice.
in town.
How are you, kid?
I am. I'm fine.
Oh, good. All right. A little choked up there. I know you were a big fan of Notre Dame. Were you at the game last night? Did you make it in time?
No, I didn't.
Oh, wow.
But I saw it all, and I got back like about 15 minutes before it started.
Oh,
So,
wow.
but it was a great win, and we see what happens now.
Now, you were snowed in somewhere in Pennsylvania. Is that what happened to you on your way down from
Oh
Vermont?
yeah, it was terrible.
Yeah.
You can't. Oh well, you can imagine. You've been there. Um, it was ice storm.
Oh, really?
Ice
Oh,
storm.
shit. Oh,
So
geez.
there was ice everywhere. You couldn't move. You
Oh
couldn't
my
move.
God.
It took me 15 minutes just to take the car when I could get out and scrape off everything. It was terrible.
Wow.
That was in Allentown, Pennsylvania, and it sucked. I stayed in a hotel for 48 hours.
48 hours, so you were stuck there? Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Now,
And
whatever
everybody
happened,
else was too.
there's a lot of curiosity as to what happened with the tickets that you had that you were
Yes.
originally looking to get your money back on. But now, did your son end up using them?
Oh, what happened with the tickets?
Yeah, the
I
tickets.
sold them. I
Oh, you
sold
did sell. Okay. But you have to sell them for face. You can't.
I sold them because I knew you guys were going to take them and sell them for more.
100%.
Yes, you
Well, I
would.
mean, the temptation naturally is there. No, we wouldn't have done that to you, Tony. We actually, believe it or not, have the smallest ethical fiber in our being because
That
we
much?
figured there was always a chance that some Orange Bowl committee honcho would be looking for Tony Segreto in those seats and see a bunch of guys that he didn't recognize and say, "Hey, where'd you get those tickets?" And they said, off Lubie and DeForest. And we would not want to do anything that would reflect badly on your impeccable reputation, Tony. So, how much over face did you charge?
$500. No.
Good for you.
Yeah,
They
it
weren't
was
overwhelmingly expensive. We were looking up upper deck tickets last night. What, about
$180.
280 or something?
180.
180 was face value.
Yes.
Okay, so I mean they were only going for like 100 over face. So it wouldn't have been worth soiling your reputation to
Yes.
make
Yes.
$400 or whatever that
But
was.
I had this vision of selling them to you,
Yeah.
and then you, of course, turning around and making a few bucks on it. And I'm going, no, it can't happen.
That's the American way. I mean, look, Trump is president. He would.
Amen.
Yes. So, all right. It turned out to be a real good game.
A real good game.
I mean, it was. People always point fingers at coaches, and this will no doubt be one of those that is added to the negative resume of Franklin,
Yeah.
where they say, "Oh, well, geez, look, you can't win the big one." Finally, went against a real team after two kind of soft spots there in the playoffs. That they appear to have the easiest of paths to get to the championship game of any of the teams, and yet you can't really blame that one on the coach, where a quarterback just makes a silly play. Anybody that's played ball knows that you don't want to, you don't want to throw cross court passes, in a basketball game in those spots. And the last thing you want to do is be going to your offside, meaning here's a right-handed thrower and he's going to his left, and then
Or
firing
across your
back
body.
over the middle of the field against all the traffic. So I don't know how you could pin that one on Franklin. I'm not sure what else he did that you might look at and say, "Oh my God, should have won this game." But I'm sure that'll be one of those things that statistically looks bad for him, but at the same time, thought they put up a pretty good fight, no?
Yes, they did. Lubie, you was going to say something?
Well, no, I mean, if you have something to say, you can say it. I was just going to say the one thing you could do. Remember they had like 45 seconds, and it's not like Alar is, who's it? Tua in his prime, or like whatever quarterback you trust, like someone you even Cam Ward for what he did for Miami this year. Like Alar's had his issues. 45 seconds, you have a tie. The college overtime, everyone gets a chance. I guess maybe you could have sat. Maybe you could have tried to run, seen if it worked. Because I think they had 2 timeouts. Did they have timeouts? So, like, instead of just chucking it like you would with a quarterback you trust, knowing Notre Dame's going to bring the house, I guess that could be on Franklin in the sense that he had faith in his quarterback and maybe he shouldn't have. Like, I don't know. I don't think he was totally outcoached in that game, but I did leave the game feeling like it was somewhat his fault. And I'm trying to figure out why. And Ken, who had a lot of money on Penn State, I think will say it a lot more succinctly than I'm able to say it. because I can't put my finger on it, but I remember leaving the game going, fucking Franklin. Like, I remember once the ball interception happened, I was like, something made me feel like they shouldn't have done that. Like,
it was his third choice. It was Aller's third choice. He looked left. The guy wasn't open. He looked kind of a little bit more to the left, and that guy wasn't open. So he went to this right, and he saw him open, and he went for it. And I want to say something. 3 years ago, Brian Kelly left Notre Dame and said, I want to win a national championship.
Yeah,
I can't win a national championship here.
Yep. He's lost 4 games every year at LSU. Notre Dame's in the championship.
All of that money.
Brian, eat that.
I'm a fan of Marcus Freeman. I mean, as much as I despise Notre Dame, Tony, it's hard not to like him. And, a little too much with the Jesus stuff with Riley Leonard for me. But nonetheless, the kid seems like he's really got his head in the right place on all other matters. And, it's just enjoying himself. I mean, that goes back to the old spirit of college football before the money was that goes way back before money was a big influence, but does seem to be playing a game for the so-called love of the game.
You know what? Marcus Freeman has made Notre Dame likable. Likable. My son went there. So I got an allegiance there. My daughter went to Florida State. I have an allegiance there. I went to Miami. I have an allegiance there. But Notre Dame has become likable, and that's all because of Marcus Freeman.
Yeah, I don't know about the love of the game stuff, but I'll agree with the Marcus Freeman stuff. Like Brian Kelly, every coach, I said this yesterday, every coach they've had always looked like he had a stick up his ass. Marcus Freeman's younger, he's a good-looking dude, and he seems to sort of get it. Like, he'll do the interviews, he's not a jerk off. Like Riley Leonard, was a paid for hire guy, so I don't know about his motivation.
Hey, you know what? What Riley Leonard did, he stipulated that any money he got for his NIL deal to go to Notre Dame was be split
with the team
evenly between his offensive linemen.
I have to read that article. I don't.
Yeah, it's just the way he competes. Look, all of these guys are getting capital now, so I'm not mad with it. Any reasonable level at quarterback is getting paid, but
it's fine.
Just the way he goes about his business, it's impressive to me. It really is. I like a guy that competes like that.
Yeah, he's impressive. He's a good kid. He reminds me of Opie Taylor.
Yes, a look.
Did he have some kind of swelling on one of his cheeks, or is that just the way his face is constructed? It looked like he had like a welt developed.
He got rocked. Remember, they took him out. He missed the last drive in the first half because they thought he might have had a concussion.
Steve Angeli did a great job. And then he did a fine job. And they went into the half down by 7.
Yeah, they kept it close. No garbage in the first half. Penn State really dominated the first half.
Yes.
That's all the story of the game is that Penn State dominated the first half and was only able to be up by a touchdown. And that may be Franklin.
I think Notre Dame has a better chance against Texas than they do against Notre Dame. Than they do against Ohio State.
Yeah, well, no one. If Ohio State plays the way they played,
only got about a minute here because we're not going late. But so what are you looking at? Ohio State and Texas.
Ohio State by 7.
7. Okay, so you're going to go ahead and lay the 6. No. Tony Segreto with that money you made on the tickets.
Yeah, the money I made on the tickets.
How many did you have? 8?
12.
You really had 12? Oh my
12.
God. Oh,
even at $100 over at face value, we could have
any for above face. Oh my God, that's annoying.
Wow.
Look at you guys. Look at you.
That's the only thing we cared about.
Yeah, exactly.
How could we make money off of your fame and strength of position? All right, Tony. So what's the story now? Are you going to be in town for a while? You came down here, I thought, for the game. Are you just getting right back in the car and heading back to Vermont? What's the deal?
I'm going to be in town for a while, and then I'll be back in Vermont. So I'll see you next week.
Okay.
Cool.
Excellent, Tony.
All right, we'll see you. You're the best.
All right, thanks. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm glad you got here safe and sound.
I'm sorry I got on late. I read the text 8:15, and I forgot it was 8:35, and I said, "Oh,
It's okay.
shoot."
All right,
We'll
Tony.
see
You're
you
Tony
next week, my
Segreto.
friend. You're the best. Thanks.
You
so
do
much.
whatever you want. All right. Tony Segreto, ladies and gentlemen. Let's
Man
get
was
back to
chomping
the
at the
professor
bit.
here.
And it's chomping at the bit.
It's already steaming.
I took everything you had to not call in on my phone and start yelling.
I take it you're not embracing this love fest of Notre Dame.
After being on the Penn State side of things,
Oh, man.
I feel like the guy who has to clean up Joy Taylor's bathroom at Fox Sports.
That was a strange meteoric rise. I guess allegations or insinuations.
Answers a lot of questions, don't it?
Yeah. I mean,
I mean, let's talk about it a little bit. Number one, the James Franklin factor, and honestly, you don't have to blame Franklin. You can blame, as the announcers like to say, their genius offensive coordinator, Nicky. After the game that kid had played, where he had 2 just moronic interceptions, including the second one where he threw into triple coverage because he has to force the ball to Ty Warren every opportunity he gets. Putting any faith in that quarterback in that situation with 45 seconds left, you could put it on the offensive coordinator, you could put it on Franklin, but that was just moronic. I mean, in that situation, roughly 35 seconds to go, maybe 40 seconds to go, you call a pass. In that case, you either call a screen pass or you call a 9 route with no other option. You call a max protect 9 route, and you say, if it's not there immediately, you run the ball. That's all you do. You don't give him choices in that situation. So in that sense, I do blame coaching, but clearly the game's on Aller. Like Aller, and again, if you want to put it back on coaching, it's because you came out in the second half and you told the reporter, well, we got to create some stuff for Drew Aller. We got to get him some easy throws. No, you keep running the football. You had dominated the first half running the football. As far as the Notre Dame side, look, I think what really happened in that game is the backup quarterback rattled Penn State because he actually has a live arm, and they went on that drive at the end of the first half where Leonard got hurt, where they were just going to try to dink and dunk their way into field goal range. And the other kid came in and got a few good throws off, and he scared Penn State a little bit. And if you watch, all of a sudden they went into a too high shell in the first couple Notre Dame drives of the second half. They definitely changed their defensive philosophy based on a guy who was no longer in the game for whatever. And again, you can say what you want about Riley Leonard. He's a competitor for certain. He's an athlete at the quarterback position, but he's a total rag arm. Like, he can't throw the ball down the field. And Penn State went into a defense for a quarterback with a live arm. And they clearly, and then bad breaks true. I mean, again, if you want to say, the Penn State side, like the cornerback on the key play of the game just fell down.
Yes.
Like, he didn't even trip for some reason. He just fell over backwards right at the line of the scrimmage.
It was like Lubie at that.
It was like me with that.
Except it would be like Lubie if the center never touched him. Like, again, he didn't trip. He didn't make contact. He just fell backwards as soon as the ball was. I was like, did he have a seizure? Like, what the hell was going on in that game?
It was ugly.
I look at the bright side, though, which is
about Aller, though. He overthrew a lot of very.
He was off all night. He was off all night.
He's not a good quarterback.
Yeah. He
I
was
will
getting
say
a lot of high praise, though, coming into this game.
He was playing well.
He had played like 3 games in a row, probably the 3 best games in big situations of his career, and then he totally reverted to the guy we saw against Ohio State twice, against Michigan last year, where his coach didn't. I mean, unfortunately, his coach did trust him, but he shouldn't have. He should have gone back to that James Franklin ultra-conservative, we're just going to run the football and throw screen passes offense, and it was working. And then he was like, well, let's give Aller some chance to throw downfield. Why? I would say on the bright side.
He really was way on. I mean, they could have had another 21 points if this guy was connecting.
He was off.
Again,
It looked very much like the Sam Darnold game that we saw last week.
I say on the bright side, which is, karmic justice speaking for what's going on at Penn State. They have the perfect coach, really. He's going to be successful enough that you can't fire him. He's young enough that he might coach another 15 or 20 years, and he'll probably make the playoffs in this format every 3 or 4 years at least. And he's never going to win a national championship because you have now have a format where you have to win 3 or 4 big games in a row, and James Franklin is just not capable of doing that. So in a lot of ways, Penn State is getting exactly what they deserve, which is a couple of decades of absolute frustration because he's never going to go like 3-8 and give you an excuse to fire him. And he's never going to win a title. So you just get to bang your head against the wall for the next couple of decades. As far as Notre Dame being likable, no. Not. I mean, look, there is a bright side to all of this, particularly if it ends up with Notre Dame and Ohio State in the national championship. We have to look at the positive. We have to look at the bright side, which is that ISIS might buy a bigger, more destructive truck for the next game. They might even buy a killdozer. Does Islamic radicals know about killdozers? Does ISIS have a website where I can send them the killdozer video for a Notre Dame Ohio State matchup?
So you won't be tempted to go.
ISIS part 2.
All right, quick thought on this Ohio State Texas game, and then we're going to get to the big board.
I think it's a much tougher game than people are looking at. I think people are projecting Ohio State to cruise. Again, if you look at the programs who have handled the NIL, transfer portal, recruiting balance era the best, these are probably your top 2 programs. They probably have figured out the best way to have balanced rosters. I think this is the 2 most talented teams in the country. And the question to me is Quinn Ewers. And Quinn Ewers has looked bad basically since returning from injury earlier in the season, except the Florida game. He did play well in the Florida game. But you look at his career, Quinn Ewers has looked best in the big spots for Texas. He looked great in Michigan, which everybody was a top 10 matchup, was on the road. This is a big test for Texas. Last year at Alabama, he played his ass off. I mean, honestly, very few quarterbacks have played as well against Nick Saban as Quinn Ewers did last year in a road trip to Tuscaloosa. I kind of, in the back of my mind, saying I expect Texas to get it up. I think this is going to be a close game. I'm looking at the over personally. Closest of everything in this game, sitting at 53.5. I don't think either defense is going to get a ton of stops. In terms of the side, I lean a little bit Texas, but I do so very cautiously.
All right. The professor, ladies and gentlemen. We love to, I mean, there are many things to talk about, but we want to get to the big board here and give ample time.
There are many things to talk about. What a week, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
well, waiting the Butler crap, the Dolphins didn't even get to any of that.
Butler, the Dolphins,
Troy Taylor,
the Patriots fire their black coach after one season, which color me shocked that Boston treats the black coach poorly. Really, has any coach ever gotten fired because they lost the number 1 pick by winning the game? And really, if you're Gerard Mayo, don't you
Brian
go to
Flores
the office and say
he didn't have the number 1 pick though?
Well, they gave him an extra year after that.
Yeah, that's true.
You're right. They did.
I mean, if you're Mayo, don't you go to Kraft's office? And go, I played Joe fucking Milton. How did I know?
That's right.
He wasn't going to throw 8 interceptions. I mean, did you see Joe Milton play at Tennessee? Like, how is it possible that I knew he was going to win this game?
Amazing.
And I mean, and the greatest part, the Patriots supposedly so locked into Travis Hunter, who they're not going to get now, which is just absolutely glorious as far as I'm concerned.
Couldn't have fucked it up.
Because I get to root for Travis Hunter, who I kind of like, despite the Colorado Dion connections. I mean, what a freaking week in sports.
All the way around.
And the saddest man, which makes me very happy, as I was telling Lubie last night, you know who the saddest man at sports is, Defo? With learning everything this week? It's Urban Dirty Old Man Meyer, who's Meyer. I've been hanging out with Brady fucking Quinn in West Lafayette, Indiana, on game day and I find out everybody back at the studio is fucking each other. Like, I have to go to Columbus and grind on co-eds at Ohio State. And I turned out this Fox Sports job. Everybody in the studio is fucking each other, and I got to be on a panel with all guys. I got to sit next to Matt fucking Leinart every week. Meanwhile, the whole Fox Sports studio is sex bunnies everywhere, right and left, even the on-air girls.
Having ridden in an elevator once in a hotel with Matt Leinart when I was in
He's
Los
a
Angeles.
dork.
Well, no, but he does well with the babes, and I believe that was a singular reason why he went back to USC for that extra season.
I'm sure he does well with the babes, but he does well with the babes for himself. He's not passing along Michigan State.
Oh, maybe not.
Urban.
No, he's not on that Joy Taylor joyride, so to speak.
Yeah, like, I mean, come on. If you're Urban Meyer and you're a known dirty old man, you have to be so depressed. You're reading, like, Shannon Sharp's throwing orgies in the basement at Fox Sports, and you don't get to participate.
I mean,
you got to go traveling around
the party they were throwing.
Right, you got to go traveling around the Big Ten, and if you ever seen Big Ten stands, that's not SEC level talent in the stands. You ever seen the crowd at a Michigan State game? That is Pigtown, USA.
It's kind of like looking in the dog pound there at the Cleveland Browns games. All right, so let's roll into the big board here so we can get it all in.
All right, well, we haven't done a show in a few weeks here. We haven't had a big board, so we didn't get our chance to do our year in review. So we went with a theme this year, and trust me, there are a lot of choices. And based on the first couple weeks of 2025, we're going to have a lot more choices in 2025. But it is the big board of 2024, the year in stupid.
All right, here we go.
Let's go.
And we start right at the beginning of the year. That is the Super Bowl, or in this case, the Stupid Bowl. And that is number 5, which is idiot celebrity wears $5,000 tracksuit in the stands at the Super Bowl. Gets shown on camera 37 times. Forget Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift. Blake fucking Lively. No wonder Ryan Reynolds has to have like 15 jobs other than being the highest paid movie actor in the world. His wife buys an Adidas X Balenciaga sweatsuit for the game that costs $5,000. And look at it. I don't care if they slap Balenciaga's name on it. I don't care if the logo's there somewhere. That's a fucking Adidas tracksuit that you paid $5,000. The same tracksuit I can order and have ordered on Amazon for $50, you paid $5,000 for it. They literally just added 2 zeros because you're an idiot celebrity. No wonder Ryan Reynolds wants to be in England managing a minor league soccer team than be around his wife. Any woman who shows up with a $5,000 Adidas 3-stripe Boston Southie tuxedo sweatsuit that costs $5,000, you're going to be tempted to commit some domestic violence.
He's in a big beef with some director, too.
If she shows up in an Adidas 3-stripe and tells you she spent $5,000 on it, I don't care how much money, you're going to be like, what the fuck? That's an Adidas tracksuit, and you paid $5,000 for it.
That's crazy.
Again, I don't care how much money you have. That's going to upset you, right? You're going to be like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm going to go start a gin company rather than being out.
You look like one of those quasi-mafia guys that are standing in the corner.
Yes, exactly.
I'd rather spend my time managing a minor league soccer team with the guy at Always Sunny in Philadelphia than be around you and your spending habit $5,000 for a goddamn Adidas tracksuit.
All right, nice start. Idiotic moves of 2024.
That was 5.
Number 4 had to be the hometown Florida Marlins throwing the stupidest promotion of all time. We talked about this back during the summer. The Florida Marlins didn't have a night. They had an entire month where if you brought a Marlins ticket, your kids got a free Burger King crown at the Marlins game with a special Marlins logo on it.
There you go. That's well worth the trip.
So many things here. Number 1, you're buying Marlins tickets.
Yes.
To get a crown
That's
that
free.
Burger King has given away for free for 40 years. That if you walk into a Burger King, those things are just strewn about the place. Like, you don't even have to buy anything. You can
No.
just go pick a crown up off the table, pop it on your head,
And leave. Yeah,
and
yeah.
you paid for Marlins tickets for this. Number two, if your kid wears this around, he wears it to school, he wears it out to play with his friends, all his friends are going to think that kid is the biggest loser in the world. You might as well,
He's likely to be abused. No
you
doubt.
might as well tattoo "I'm going to have a bad life" across your kid's forehead rather than let him wear a goddamn Burger King Marlins crown around. Here I am wearing a crowd of the worst managed franchise in all of sports
Sports, yeah.
that also celebrates like the 18th best fast food restaurant. If you let your fucking kid wear this to school, you might as well just go sign him up to work the fryer at the same time. This crown pretty much signifies exactly where your kid's employment life is going to be.
Oh my
Like
oh my God.
the top
pretty
of the
nasty.
line for him immediately becomes being the Whopper guy. Like,
Oh my God.
so, and to finish this, I didn't even know this, but if you've ever watched Billy Corbin's Cocaine Cowboys, the great Billy
Yes.
Corbin,
Yeah,
maybe his
yeah.
best film in my opinion.
We love it to this day. Yeah.
The guys were explaining that back in the day when they were around town, the way they signaled to people that they had a load coming in was they wore a freaking Burger King crown at the nightclubs. So again,
Is it
not
drug-
only are you destroying your child's future and wasting money on Marlins tickets by buying this, you're doing a throwback to the cocaine days as well. So,
You're advancing
There's
the
nothing good about
notion
this.
that drug use is good. Yeah.
again,
All right, that's number 4. Marlins
number 4
promotion.
of the year in stupid, the worst promotion ever thrown by your Florida Marlins.
Beautiful.
Number 3, and it does once again have a South Florida tie-in. We had some unfortunate events happen in South Florida this year in terms of the world of sports, and probably the worst of them, creepy Stanley Cup guy spent like an entire year hanging around South Florida,
Yeah.
weird molester gloves, rubbing the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Just think about this human being. This is a man who watches these hockey players violate the Stanley Cup in the worst way possible.
Yes.
Meanwhile, he's walking around with his creepy little white gloves. And I'm sorry, if you see someone out in public wearing white gloves, you're thinking that person's doing something bad. Like,
No doubt.
there's no good scenario that requires you to wear little white creepy gloves around. Nowhere in life is it like people thought it was cute when Michael Jackson wore the one glove,
Yeah.
and now we know what he did with that one gloved hand.
What he was doing with the other hand wasn't
Exactly.
flattering either. Yeah.
And then we've got like, where did this cup spend the first day? It spent its entire first day in the fucking elbow room. Have you
Elbow
ever
room.
been in the elbow room?
It's
Do you
like
know how
LCD Central.
disgusting the elbow? This is for those who don't live in South Florida. This is how disgusting the elbow room is.
Yeah.
Right around the corner from the elbow room, there is another bar called Hunter's Beach Bar. Do you know who runs Hunter's Beach Bar? The weirdo porn star who was the star and producer of the MILF Hunter website for like 10 years.
Really?
That's-
Really?
who owns and
We
operates
haven't been
Hunter's
there.
Beach Bar. And
Oh
a
my
bar
God, are you serious?
run by the weirdest, most disgusting porn star in the world is 10 times cleaner and nicer inside than the fucking elbow room is. That's how disgusting the elbow room is. If you've ever, and you know I'm
The elbow
right.
room smells like a subway car.
If
in
you
here.
have
Elbow
ever
room.
been in the elbow room, you know I'm right. That somehow the elbow room is vastly more disgusting than the bar around the corner that's run by a porn star.
This guy's got
And
the
this
white glove
weirdo
treatment.
has to sit in the corner with his little gloves and his
Yeah.
cup polishing, watching people violate the Stanley Cup.
Oh my
Well,
God.
I asked Mike Mayo this because like Mike Mayo likes this guy. I'm like, how has this guy not killed himself? Like, you won't even. This cup is so precious to you that you wear your little white gloves and you polish it constantly. Meanwhile, you're watching the troglodytes at the elbow room rub themselves all over this thing. The most disgusting people in South Florida putting their hands on it, drooling on it, spitting beer into it, and let's just hope their genitals stayed in their pants during that time, which they didn't.
Unlikely,
No way. They're for sure.
And meanwhile, you're sitting there with your polishes waiting to clean your precious cock.
Exactly.
It's
Classic.
a human golem sitting in the corner. Look what they're doing to my precious.
It's only number 3. That's
This
unbelievable.
person has the worst life in the history of anybody ever related with sports.
Oh my
Again, the guy who has to mop up Joy Taylor's dressing room has a better life than this guy does.
White gloves would be applicable there too. All right, that's number 3. Number 2.
Oh my
Number
God.
2, and we talked about this a lot when it happened, but dorks ruined gambling in 2024.
No, really, last
We
year
went
was
from gambling being like cool and underground to assholes betting skee ball at Dave and fucking Buster's. We went from gambling being James Bond at the Baccarat table, ordering a martini. And again, James Bond orders a weak martini, so it's not great look, but it's a look.
Yeah, it was like a single.
14-year-olds ordering fucking smoothies while they gamble on Papa Shot at Dave and Buster's. Can you imagine what the modern hustler looks like? It's like some 14-year-old broken out in acne, nailing 4 corner bounce shots on fucking air hockey. Like
And never
Any
mind money.
mystique-
They're doing it for the tickets that you get.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
little
fucking tickets.
Again,
thing that you stick your fingers in. You
Right.
can't get it
so you can win enough to get the fucking boombox television combo that's been sitting on the fucking counter for 37 years.
on. Some big pink teddy bear. Yeah.
Got a fucking cassette player in it
It's a disc, man.
that costs 487,000 tickets.
Oh
Yeah.
I mean, really, if there was a moment where gambling definitively turned uncool, it was Dave and fucking Buster's.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, this
I mean,
is,
there really hasn't been a moment where there's been a good reason to go into Dave and Buster's in like 20 plus
No.
years.
No.
But again, now there's going to be one in the middle of the fucking strip.
I used to like the bar shuffleboard. That was a gambling game, also, I believe. But that back in the day, it made some sense. It was like going to the old pool halls, and everybody's got money riding on every shot, which was great. But no, a valid point here.
Right?
It's bottomed out. You're right, Professor.
Oh no, it's like
It is gone to the
Weird.
herbs, man.
Yeah.
Like, and again, Dave and fucking Buster's is to blame.
The clandestine meetings with some wise guy in the back alley to pay up on Monday.
Right.
The trips to the graveyard. That I mean,
You're not
those are the
meeting,
glory years of this.
You're not meeting Bo Diddley at the track, who might, might or might not be mobbed up, and there's a little air of mystery about it. Now, when you're going off to pay, like you're like, who's your guy? Oh, it's Keith, the manager at Dave and Buster's.
the assistant manager. Yeah, he's
Right.
running a Papa Shot pool.
In
All right, that's number
between picking up orders of fried shrimp, he collects on Tuesdays.
I was a big Dave and Buster's frequenter and patron back when Jesse was a kid. Yeah.
Oh, when he was a kid.
You have a little kid, yeah,
Take
you
your
have a
kid
little
to
kid,
Dave
yeah.
and Buster's.
But,
And now,
it was an expensive enterprise. You were
Oh,
almost
it's
better off
expensive
going to that place that had the wooden roller coaster that never worked.
Oh, Grand Prix.
Which had
Grand Prix
like
Racerama.
batting cages and other stuff. A lot of games.
yeah.
Grand Prix Racerama.
Grand Prix
Grand-
Racerama. That was like
yeah.
it was Boomers eventually. That place had like 4 names before it closed.
Oh my
yeah.
God, that was highway robbery, man! I'd much rather just take my 8-year-old son to a casino in Atlantic City.
But if you owned that place today, you're the biggest bookmaker in town. People are over there like, yeah, Pac-Man, big action. We got a big money game on Donkey Kong.
Some poison face shows up to
Right? And look, we've all engaged in stuff where we bet on some really stupid shit.
Yeah.
But today I'm betting on a fucking air hockey match.
Oh my
They'll be doing it.
That's where you have to reconsider your life, right?
Yeah.
That's where you're like, you know what? I need to find something else. Like,
All right, let's unveil number 1.
not too far down the rabbit hole. And number 1, again, we have to remember this is 2024, the big board and stupid. And really, there's no contest. Nobody ever has had a stupider year than Aaron Rodgers.
I was like, which way is going? There's a whole bunch of
Like,
places.
this is a man who started his year by going to Mexico to drink ayahuasca and bragged about it on TV. Came back and talked about his love of Mexican psychedelics. Because everybody knows if you want to get into something in 2024, it's Mexican narcotics. Like,
Yes.
no chance somebody's going to slip some fentanyl in that and you're going to keel over dead at any moment.
Oh, sure.
You're basically saying I'm suicidal. If you're like, I like to spend my off season going to Mexico and doing drugs, means like I like to do activities where there's at least a 4% chance I'm going to die.
Probably higher.
I was going to say 4%'s low.
Yeah, 4%.
Then followed that up with suggesting that he might retire to run for vice president with RFK Jr. and made that announcement 2 days before RFK Jr. put out the video where he was talking about driving around with a dead bear in his car.
Yeah. This is our secretary.
Then followed that up with a book about how he doesn't talk to his parents anymore because Olivia Munn thought they were bad luck because they called him right before a game where he threw 3 interceptions.
Really? Oh, God.
Then followed that up with the Jets season. We got his coach fired. He got his GM fired. He went around acting like an asshole for the entire season. And then by the end of the year, he was like, you know what? I might want to come back next year and be a mentor to a young quarterback. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure everybody else hates the concept, but if you are not a Jets fan, the Jets have to bring back Aaron Rodgers and hire Brian Flores. The rest of us need a year of Brian Flores head coach and Aaron Rodgers quarterback just to see who will murder who first. Because there's no way that doesn't end up in a knife fight in the locker room. It's the only possibility there.
Seems like a perfect match, yeah, to help the Jets.
Right? Again, I hope after that the Jets, find some balance and some success. But we need a year of the Aaron Rodgers, Brian Flores combination. And that is a recap of 2024 and the undisputed champion of and we forgot about the part where he went on national TV and accused Jimmy Kimmel of being a pedophile.
Yes.
With nothing. He just said it.
Like, I'm just going to go on national TV and open myself up to a multi-million-dollar lawsuit to do a joke about Jimmy Kimmel wanting to bang kids. Okay.
Fucking Rodgers.
Like,
pretty solid year, you would have to say.
There's really nobody who has ever had, like, honestly, he didn't play that bad at the end of the year, but just in terms of stupidity, I don't think anybody's ever had a stupider year than Aaron Rodgers.
That's cool.
Like, he's the undisputed king of stupid.
That's classic.
Yeah,
And in a year where Blake Lively began the year showing up in a sweatsuit she paid $5,000 for. It wasn't an easy year to be the king of stupid.
Yeah,
and he managed to jump so far over the bar that everybody else gave up. He invented the Fosbury flop of stupid. Like, everybody else in the competition was like, God damn, I can't top that. He went to fucking Mexico to do drugs. I can't top that.
The Professor, ladies and gentlemen. All right, you're good to go in about 5 minutes, Professor, on a little burial episode.
I can rant and rave about this shit all day, Defo.
Oh, good. And I hope you can resurrect that Dave and Buster.
We haven't even, like I said, gotten into the Fox Sports stuff.
No. I mean, a lot of good stuff. All right, Professor, we'll talk to you in a couple of minutes here on Bury Your Bookie. That's on nofilter.net. Lubie, we will see you at the racetrack today, 10 times. So that'll be a lot of fun. Thanks to Tony Segreto for joining us. Professor, always a gas on these Fridays. For Mike Lubitz, I'm Jeff DeForest. We'll see you next time as we leave you now that.
The time.
It's 9:09.